Prime Minister Philip Davis says in spite of criticism over the cost of travel, it's paying off with results that will overrun the spend. He was addressing Parliament Wednesday when he detailed results of talks with the African Export-Import Bank on the sidelines of COP27 in Egypt last week.
Travel also yielded a memorandum of understanding with the African Export-Import Bank, which was signed this morning. That's how quickly we move. Signed this morning. Again, these opportunities do not arise from sitting at home, hoping that some kind of magic will happen. You have to get up, get out, and work the hardest you possibly can in the best interest of the Bahamian people.
The Prime Minister also declaring that he's been able to move the barometer of influence with the International Monetary Fund for the benefit of the Bahamas.
We didn't go to the IMF begging for a loan. They came to us, to discuss a partnership. You don't get this kind of agreement by sitting on a Zoom call. You don't get this kind of agreement by just sitting at home with your fingers crossed. You need to build a relationship. You need to be able to look each other in the eye and know that you can work together and achieve great things. You need to build trust and credibility and understanding, something that was previously lacking.
Also crediting in-person interactions with the success of multilateral talks, the Prime Minister said a panel discussion he was involved in sparked international dialogue, which eventually changed the World Bank's tone on the issue of climate change.
That conversation sparked widespread global discussion and is credited with a shift in the position of the World Bank. Whilst on that panel, the World Bank head was a climate denier. After that, and after persons around the world heard that debate going on between myself, the managing director of the IMF, and the president of the World Bank, he was called upon. The whole world heard it. And the World Bank now has shifted their position. Right? That's because I was pressing it to do so.
Recent successes also included the establishment of carbon credits as an asset class with the International Monetary Fund, something the Prime Minister insists couldn't be achieved remotely. Keeping you in the know, this is OPM Press Now. Prime Minister Philip Davis has addressed the collapse of crypto giant FTX. Addressing Parliament on Wednesday, Prime Minister Davis gave details of the scope of the investigation and the company's reach.
The Bahamas did not have sole oversight of FTX's worldwide operation. I've given directions that the proceedings and investigations in our country are to be of the highest order and given precedence, given the amounts involved, and because committed and rigorous oversight is of national importance. We will be coordinating these efforts with duly appointed authorities in other jurisdictions.
The Prime Minister also explaining that FTX's fate aligns with the challenges the crypto industry has endured in recent times.
Madam Speaker, there have been both booms and busts in the world of crypto, and this year has been a significant bust, with total market capitalization falling from $3 trillion to $800 million or lower. The steep sell-offs and declining volumes have led analysts to describe this time as a crypto winter.
As investigations continue, the Prime Minister says the situation provides an important lesson for the fledgling crypto industry in the Bahamas.
The Bahamas was already on track to update the regulatory framework before year's end to address lessons learned as a result of this year's crypto winter. No doubt, as the various jurisdictions involved unravel the actions that led to this moment, we will be among the first jurisdictions to gain and put to use valuable insights, allowing us to further strengthen our framework. What I would ask, Madam Speaker, is for all those who care about our country's reputation to tread carefully when they speak about matters that are very complex and still unfolding. There's a reason that the Bahamas won international praise for the approach we have taken to date on digital assets. And there is plenty of room to have a healthy debate about the industry. But this is a story that has the world's attention, and those who use it to mislead and score cheap political points are no patriots.
Keeping you in the know. This is OPM Press Now.
Good morning, members of the media, those joining us in the gallery, our guests, and those joining us via the stream. It is a pleasure to welcome you to the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing. We have some very exciting news for you today, and we're obviously going to take some of your very pertinent questions, and we thank you for sending those in. I'm going to invite Press Secretary Clint Watson to come now and introduce our guests for today.
Thank you, Jillian, and good morning to all of you joining us on your various platforms and live on television. We're happy to report to you another week on what the Davis administration is doing. To my colleagues who are here in the room, good to have you another week. We're going to focus more today on what is happening with our quarterly financial reporting, what it has done, the performance of the country during the last quarter. We want to highlight some of the interesting numbers that you will hear about and what that means, which is, as I should say, trending in the right direction for us, which is good for the country. And the Financial Secretary will talk to you about that and relay that to you. And then, of course, we continue to see success on the international market with our sports teams and associations. And so we're going to talk about something that's going to be happening here in the country in real short order, and hear from the association responsible for that, so you can hear about it, plan it, and be a part of what is happening. And then, of course, we have a couple of announcements to give you from Prime Minister and to take your questions. So let's get right into it this morning. And I'm going to call Mr. Simon Wilson, our Financial Secretary, to talk to us about the quarter report. Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. Revenue collection for the first quarter of fiscal year was estimated at $654.3 million, which is a 9.7% increase over the previous year's quarter. The key improvements was VAT, which increased by $35.4 million, departure tax by $26.9 million, excise duties by $23.6 million, stamp tax on financial transactions, $1.8 million. Expenditure decreased by 58%, $58 million or 7.9% in comparison to the previous year's first quarter. This represents 20% of the budget target. So expenditures in line with the budget target. And what drove the expenditure increase was a $13.2 million decrease in subsidies, which decreased by $16.7 million. Use of goods and services decreased by $13.2 million. Social assistance for COVID-19 continued to decline. That decreased by $41.9 million against the previous year quarter, which was very elevated. Obviously, because of the higher debt burden, we saw an increase in debt interest payments of $10.5 million. And we saw an increase in pension gratuity payments of $4.4 and compensation of employees. So in the first quarter, if you recall, the government signed a number of industrial agreements, reinstated increments and promotions, and really try to deal with the issue of arrears to public officers. Capital expenditure, which is not unusual, was subdued in the first quarter of the fiscal year. In comparison to the previous first quarter of the previous fiscal year, it reduced by $10.2 million. Overall, the fiscal deficit declined in the first quarter comparison to the previous fiscal period by $115.8 million. We had a deficit in the first quarter of $20.6 million, which was the lowest deficit for any quarter for an extended period of time. So overall, the fiscal position for the first quarter was very, very encouraging. So, any questions? So there's no questions?
Do you expect that trend to continue?
Well, we see no reason why it cannot continue, but however, there are possible headwinds. Obviously, the global economy it represents a risk. Elevated prices for fuel, which impacts both BPL and the Oil and Suez Corporation, represents a risk that we have to manage very carefully. And the potential of a recession, which may impact tourism numbers, is a risk. But overall, on the revenue side, it has been very, very encouraging. If you know, our revenue is cyclical. Most of our revenues come in during the third and fourth quarter of the fiscal period. So we look forward to that. Expenditure tends to be more flatline throughout the entire fiscal period. So, but we don't want to celebrate too quickly. It's a work in progress, I say.
I have a question unrelated to this. I know on November 6th, the grocers rejected the final price control list that the Prime Minister, I think, had announced a few weeks earlier to help with inflation. Can you provide an update on how those talks are going with the grocers, where it stands now?
Not directly, no.
Okay, and with the potential of a recession, in which areas will the country face the most challenges?
Well, obviously, if you have a recession, the impact is always felt at the lower income levels, right? Right now, if you look at the Bahamian economy, the economy is strong and robust, but obviously there's always a concern at persons in lower percentile. So that's where we'll feel any pressure. Persons who are in the margin. Yes, sir.
How are actual numbers compared to the budget?
Very well. So in terms of expenditure, so typically in a quarter we will spend, budget's more flat line. In a quarter we'll spend around 25%. So we are 20%. In revenues, we are going about 5% higher than projections. In some areas, for example, in imports, we go in import revenue, VAT revenue, we go in much higher than 5%. So pretty well. We are.
So we're trending 5% above what you budgeted.
In revenues and expenditure, we were 5% below. So overall, it's a 10% overall swing. So very well, but you can't, with these things, you can't celebrate too quickly. This is only the first quarter. There's still a lot of work to be done. And, usually in December, expenditures pick up as persons seek to clear out any arrears before the end of the year and so forth.
Does the government have any kind of financial exposure to FTX?
Not that I'm aware of.
As things change, as BPL bills increase, as the minimum wage increases, the government's costs increase, is that going to balance out? We're talking about the deficit now. Is that going to end up balancing out later on for the government?
We think so. So a couple of things is important. Eh? So this month, hopefully, we will bring all public officers up to the minimum wage, which is $13,520. So all public officers by the end of on November payday will be at or above minimum wage. All arrears of public officers will be paid. All right? So we build that into our budget. In terms of what's happening with the BPL increase, which is a staggering increase over 18 months, one of the things that I think that was said, and I'll repeat it, is the reason why you stagger the increase is to allow persons a chance to adjust behavior to lower the cost. So, for example, you may have seen the Ministry of Finance with BPL is going through a street lighting project, all right? Changing the street lights, the LED and so forth. That's going to lower our electricity costs. In addition, we have, in the day's paper, for example, we have issued an RFP for rooftop solar, which is a big part of our plans. Again, all those things are being done to really balance things, so make smart investments to reduce costs, operating costs going forward. And we've also completed 2 systems in 2 schools, one in CV Bethel, and I think it's Antor. I don't know. I don't remember the next school, but it may not be Antor, but CV Bethel, and I know we're doing TG Glover now in terms of rooftop solar. So we try and make smart investments and lower costs, operating costs going forward.
You noted that there was a number of arrears to pay out. I guess how much can you estimate the government is anticipating to pay out in arrears in payment for employees?
For persons with, so the minimum wage, the Prime Minister announced increase with effect for public officers with effect on the 1st of July. So we pay, that's 5 months arrears. We estimate it to be around $3 million that we'll pay in addition the end of this month for those employees who, and it's roughly maybe with 3,000 employees, 3,000 employees who salary was below the new minimum wage. So we brought all those persons up, we paid all those arrears, and that'll be done by the end of this month.
The Prime Minister said, used the phrase, "we're not out of the woods yet." Can you talk about what indicators are the most worrying?
Well, obviously, elevated fuel prices impact our state-owned enterprises. I spoke with BPL, Water and Sewage Corporation. They feel the direct impact of fuel. In the case of Water and Sewage Corporation, reverse osmosis is a very energy-intensive process, and most of their water, which they resell, is acquired through reverse osmosis. That's a very energy-intensive process. So it's a balancing act, because you don't want to, you have to build the buffers to deal with these spikes, And so that's what I think the Prime Minister referred to. Obviously, on the fiscal accounts, the direct fiscal accounts, we are encouraging our agencies to operate within the budget framework. That's a continuous process, but there are unexpected things happen all the time. For example, a spike in migrants could throw off the budget by a lot. Illegal migrants, I should say. You might just say 120 or 150 or 200 migrants come, but for the government, that's a cost, because we have to feed them, we have to transport them, the cost transporting them to a central place, then we have to transport them back to their home country. That could be, if they stay for more than a week, that could be about $1,000 per person, easy. So these are kind of things that could throw off the budget if you have that spike. And given the instability at the southern border, if illegal migration goes up tremendously over a short period, that could throw off our numbers a lot.
Anything coming from the debt management body and Rothschild? Anything coming out of it yet?
Yeah.
Can you say?
Well, take a look at our curve, our yield curve. I just got a note this morning from Rothschild indicating a congratulatory note that our performance, our bonds have improved tremendously. We had an inverted yield curve. That curve is now flattened out and is now being normal. So we are performing, in their words, we are performing better than the market. the EM market, given the things that we do and the good news. And these fiscal results here, you know, we don't want to rest on them and say so forth, but these fiscal results here are very good. You know, it should give a sense of comfort to investors that the government is on the right track. Now, obviously, things could happen, but at least in the first quarter, you know, we see that the government is moving towards the right way.
I've been trying to find out from the central bank, maybe you know how many Bahamians may have taken advantage of the waiver that the central bank put in place.
I don't know how many Bahamians, but I could tell you approximately the central bank approved approximately $180 million in the waiver, approximately $30 million or close to $40 million was actually action purchase into bonds. So it's more symbolic than have a real impact, but it's still a good sign.
And has the government brought on any additional staff at Inland Revenue to aid in tax collection?
Yes. So we've brought on so far for this year, we brought on around 97 persons at Inland Revenue aid and tax collections. We have put a proposal to the government based on advice for Family Island, for staff in the Family Island. So for the Family Islands account for 30% of our economic activity and only around 5% of our revenue. So there's an imbalance. And that imbalance is easy to explain when you realize in many Family Islands, outside of the 1 or 2 custom officers, there's nobody there involved in dedicated revenue. So one of the things we want to do is make revenue administration a year-long activity in the Family Islands as opposed to seasonal, where we send a special team in and so forth, and broaden it from just customs. You know, so we have a clear strategy for the Family Islands, and that's part of us achieving this 25% of GDP. You know, we have a well-developed strategy covering all aspects of tax administration.
Property tax bills have gone out, I think. Do you know what kind of headway Inland Revenue has made in reaching the people, maybe foreigners who own vacant land, those kinds of things, and getting them to pay?
Significant. So we're doing about $7 million a month in arrears collection for property tax, all right, through a variety of means, but it's very significant.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, FS, for that information and, of course, taking additional questions. I want to divert just a bit from our regular routine schedule so that we can accommodate the team who has another appointment in a few minutes. So I want to be able to get them in and get them out. There is going to be an event coming up here in the Bahamas as we continue to promote the Bahamas as sports tourism. And the paradise for sports. And so I'm going to invite Secretary General of Bahamas Baseball Association, Theodore Sweeting, to come and speak about Caribbean Baseball Cup. And we do note that we have a number of persons here. He'll tell you who's here and talk about this upcoming event.
Morning, everyone. This is an exciting time for baseball. Exciting time for our country. First of all, I want to thank this administration for taking the initiative and biting the, what we always say, the bad publicity sometimes, and to finish our national stadium. It's almost there. We're almost ready to go. And guess what? We're about to host the Caribbean Baseball Cup. It's the 4th one, but there's some significance with this one. Why? This is the first time in Bahamian baseball history, in this country's history, that we'll be hosting a qualifier for the CAC Games in 2003, which is going to be hosted in El Salvador. So 2 teams out of this competition will then become eligible to go to the CAC Games. And I think that's historic for us, for our country and the standpoint of our history in baseball. So it's a great opportunity for us, and we're really excited for us. I have some members here with my LOC, and we've been doing a tremendous job trying to pull this all together and bring it all together. It's been really a rough one for us because, you don't know how you're going to do the CDs and everything because it's a new stadium, but it's awesome. We're inviting you all down. Very soon we'll have a big press conference at the stadium so you could see everything prior to going into into the actual event. So we have 5 countries that are coming in to compete with Team Bahamas. That's the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Haiti, Cuba, and who's that last one there? Curacao. Curacao is the defending champions, so they'll be here trying to defend their championship. It's also to get that ticket to go to El Salvador, right? Right now, the team is in Grand Bahama. It's basically because that's the only place we have a full 90-foot diamond field for them to practice and get ready for. And a lot of our other players are still in college. They'll be home by the 28th, and then we get ready to put that team on the field. So they're just coming together. I think we can be very competitive. Biggest challenge we have for us right now, it ain't got nothing to do with the stadium, is getting the major league teams to release our ball players. We got about 40 ball players right now. We're fighting back and forth with Major League Baseball for them to give us the release. They just can't come back and compete for your country. They're under contract, and we got to get them signed to release just to play for your country. I think we have that challenges with basketball and all of our major sports. Baseball is no different once they reach that level. So I'm ready for any questions that you might have for us, but we're ready to go. It's going to be an exciting time for the country, and I love the emphasis that we're putting in sports. I say this because if you can see the excitement in our boys who just went down to Freeport yesterday and today, because they can get the opportunity to wear what? Bahamas across their chest. About 6 of them played for Great Britain, and they wore Great Britain across their chest. So the enthusiasm, the excitement for them right now is out of the roof. And so the bonding right now that's going on with each of them is amazing for us, and it's a good opportunity for us. And we're really excited for this opportunity and the prospects of baseball for our country. It's tremendous. It's going leaps and bounds. My president here can tell you we get calls every day. We're dealing with Major League Baseball for the opportunities for our young men. And this is going to be the next, I think, explosion from the standpoint of the opportunities from professional, collegiate. It's continuing to grow. So exciting time for us.
Our athletes will be released. When will we get the final word?
You know what? That's a very good question because we don't know. Some of them right now over in Freeport warming up, getting prepared, and we haven't got the final releases yet. That's why we can't announce the team. We announce the team on the 28th or the 29th when we should have everything to move forward. But it's just, it's a difficult process from the standpoint of Major League Baseball. One of the things is we played on a new stadium. And Major League is coming in after the full completion, do their inspection. What they like to do is to make sure that the surface and everything that their professional players are playing on meets their standards. Our field is all turf, so we know we're going to meet the standards when they do their final inspection of the stadium. So we're not concerned about that, but right at this time, that's what we're fighting back and forth with them.
To make up the team, obviously a huge part of baseball is the pitching. What are you looking at?
Yeah, 14 young pitchers going to be making up our staff to go into this competition. That's from collegiate and professional. 2 of our professional pitchers just pitched for Great Britain, who advanced to the World Baseball Classic next year in March, so they'll be a part of the squad. So I think from a pitching standpoint, we've grown tremendously. From the standpoint of the work that's been done from the development leagues, the academies that we have in the country. So we're pretty much prepared. I think we're ready. We have opening night. We'll be the Team Bahamas on the 4th going up against Haiti. So please make sure we have we got flags and everything for the stadium so we can be out there cheering our boys on.
Thank you, Doc. What message I guess would you send to the public? Obviously, we know baseball is a sport that is currently growing leaps and bounds and it's getting its feet wet. What message, I guess, you send the fans to ensure that we pack out the stadium like we would do for basketball or track?
Well, one of the things that our main audience for baseball is youth baseball, because that's when a lot of the parents carry their 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 14, 15 years old out to the various leagues and participate. So we know we're going to get that fan support from that standpoint. But the senior part of the program has just returned. Since the last stadium was torn down, it's been a very long time since we've played senior baseball. But I would say to the Bahamian people, you've heard about all these names, the Deshawns, right? These various ball players that play baseball. This is an opportunity for you to come to see them. Don't just watch them when you get a clip from whether it's a sport broadcast, but this is the opportunity to come. You could come and see them in action because these are some outstanding young men. You know, we got to. And I know one of the big questions is whether Jazz Chisholm or Lucius Fox could play. They cannot play in the qualifiers. If we qualify next year to go to the CAC games, then we'll have the access to Jazz as well as Lucius, who play professional baseball. So no ball player who plays in the majors or on the 40-man roster can play in the qualifiers.
Let's talk about the competition itself. Tough teams, you got Curacao and Cuba in there. What do you think we stack up against those teams?
Our game is where our players outstanding in his speed. We're going to run them to death. They're going to have to play. We changed the game. If any of you watch Anthony, he's too old for this tournament, who played with Great Britain. Anthony changed the game when he played with Great Britain, and that's because of his speed. And we got about 7, 8 of the young men with the same type of speed that Anthony has. So you're looking at a team that's going to get on first base, and they're gone. So if catchers, pitchers don't know how to hold on and do the respective things, and these guys, and when I say this, these fellas have major league speed, but the catchers who they're going to be going up against don't have the pop time for major league players. So you know we'll be at the advantage, right? So that's our part of our game that we always utilize. And I think the manager, when you get an opportunity to speak with him, he'll tell you, we're gonna run. And you're gonna have to be able to throw us out or get us out.
For the Great Britain, for the players who play for Great Britain, do you know when they'll be able to release them if they want to release them?
No, we don't worry about Great Britain. We're not concerned about Great Britain. The release comes from the Major League Baseball clubs, who sign them to professional contracts.
How many of our boys are playing in MLB? Who's expected to be on the team?
For our minor league system, right now, all the players that are in Grand Bahama now are in the minor league system. The majority of the other players that are coming in are playing collegiate baseball, and they're just finishing up their fall season, so they're ready to go straight in from the fall season into competition when they get home locally. Yeah.
Who's the manager?
Jerron Sanders is the manager. And we have one of the coaches is Albert Cartwright, who is a former professional baseball player, played up to AAA. Marketing. We have hired BES, who has done a tremendous job. We have banners, billboards all over the country. We've ran ads on all of the television stations, in the newspaper, promoting the event and the approaching event. And this is one of our parts too, just to get the word out continually, because you got 2 weeks now. And you know, the biggest question I guess with everybody isn't the point that they don't know about the tournament that's coming. Is whether the stadium will be finished. And I can assure you, because a lot of people keep asking me, will the grass be ready? The word is, it's turf. They're pulling the carpet now, and some people will question whether it's a good surface to play on. It's a good surface to play on for baseball. All of the top collegiate teams in America play on turf fields. It's easy to maintain. You don't have to worry about cutting grass and all of that, so it's very efficient. All of the major league clubs play on turf fields, but it's just very, very high quality turf, which you can't really afford. That's a $30 million just for the field with the major league balls play on. Yeah.
How much seats available in the stadium?
Stadium seats 5,000, right? So we're looking at maybe about 2,000 a night, all day. And our tickets from the standpoint of the game, general admission, VIP tickets, if you purchase your ticket for that day, that will allow you to see all 3 of the games for that day. So the ticket carries for the 3 days. So you can watch one earlier game, go home, come back, and catch Team Bahamas in the night, because we're playing all the evening games.
So what time is the open up? On the 4th?
Opening right now is on the 4th. The tournament starts at 10 o'clock on the 4th. Then we have a 2 o'clock game. Then we have the opening at 6. And then 7:30, Team Bahamas goes up against Haiti.
Would rain happen?
That field drains extremely well. As you all know, previously about a month ago, we had a lot of the rain showers that came down. The other day, and the actual field, within 10 minutes after the rain stopped, we could have gone right back on the field and walk up and down. No puddles, no anything, so it drains very well. They did a tremendous job. Congratulations to those who are constructing the stadium. Thank you, sir.
Thank you to the team and Team Bahamas and all of you who will be a part. It's a great opportunity to get out and participate. A couple of announcements, getting back to our itinerary, our schedule, a couple of announcements from Prime Minister that we want to be able to give to you today. And obviously, you would have heard about it. The government signed a memorandum of understanding with the African Export-Import Bank yesterday. It's another major outcome of the Prime Minister Davis's international meetings. The Prime Minister met with executives of the bank while in Egypt last week. And this week, that signing set the groundwork for trade between African countries and Caribbean countries. The bank has made a commitment to invest some $700 million in the Caribbean. Proposed projects include those in the transportation sector and in poultry farming and supporting local banks with correspondent lines of credit. Also, we will next week's briefing, be able to give you more updates on COP27. As you know, Prime Minister and his delegation is back from that, but the negotiators and the Attorney General are still there this week, where this is a week of negotiations on various aspects of COP27. That's taking place this week. So once that team is back, we'll be able to give you a full report and update on COP27 once they have returned home. Mask mandates that you know have relaxed for schools. The Bahamas has reached another milestone with the relaxation of the mask mandate. Health officials announced this week that masks will no longer be required in classroom settings. However, still remember, masks will still be required at public and private health facilities and long-term residential care facilities. Now, some persons will still opt to wear masks, and the Ministry of Health advises that their choice to do so should be absolutely respected. All right, I think that's all the announcements we have. I can take your questions that you may have for us. Berthany McDermott, Our News. Hi, Berthany.
Hi. Do we have the numbers as yet as to how much money was outstanding from the Bermuda trip and if that's been settled?
I still don't. And Prime Minister has said that he will give a full detailed accounting of it once it's happened, but I have no figures yet.
Previously mentioned about Dorian fundraiser, about the funds from that. Is there an update there when we'll find out?
Yeah, we've raised at the fundraiser that was held in Nassau, $32,832. Any other questions? Okay, thanks, PJ. Tribune, Leandria Roll. Hi, Leandria.
Hi, I just had I had the same question on the Dorian fund, but did the government, I don't think the government has released, I guess, the information in terms of how much it, what was the cost for the different events that they had in remembrance of Hurricane Dorian?
No, it'll be when you get your financial breakdowns, you'll see it there. It'll be as part of the regular government expenditures. From what I understand, the budget that was set, it was under the budget. It was under budgeted because of the financial sector who came in and supported some things. So it was under budgeted. Anything else you have, Yandra? Okay. Keel Campbell, JCN. Hey, Keel.
Good day, Clint. Real quick, yesterday the FTX CEO sat with Vox, where he revealed that he doesn't actually support cryptocurrency regulation, and any statements previously showing support towards regulation was just PR. Considering that when he first moved his business to the Bahamas, he cited our country's regulatory framework for cryptocurrency as the reason that FTX were considering the Bahamas, and FTX were considering the Bahamas for some time. In light of his true feelings on cryptocurrency regulation being revealed, is there any concern from government on our current regulatory framework for cryptocurrency and digital asset management?
When you talk about regulatory framework, I'll say this much. Prime Minister spoke to the country's regulatory policy yesterday when he was in Parliament, and emphasized that the country would emerge from ongoing proceedings with an enhanced reputation as a solid jurisdiction for the emerging field of digital assets. And he stands behind that. That's his view of this matter as far as regulatory regime and assets and management.
All right, and I guess last thing, same subject. This administration has communicated its commitment to making the Bahamas a country where cryptocurrency business is allowed to operate. And in light of this FTX matter, can the government provide details into the expertise or consultancy on digital assets, the government saw prior to getting involved with FTX?
As you know, it is an active investigation, and so we're not going to comment any further today regarding that particular matter. Thank you, appreciate it. Who else we have here today with questions? Laurencia, Eyewitness News. Hi, Laurencia.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just for clarity, yesterday during Mr. Davis' contribution in the House, he noted, he talked about the travel, and there was a lot of concerns about that, but he noted that there were 2 instances that the government went on a trip for official business but didn't go on political business. Can you bring clarity to that?
Okay, you may have been, but that's been a long, ongoing discussion for weeks here with the Bermuda trip and so forth that he would have spoken to. So I don't want to rehash that again. We've been speaking to that for several weeks, the Bermuda trip that he's referring to. I think it's important to also mention the Prime Minister has also said that he is going to call for greater scrutiny of these practices and revision of this because it's been happening across administrations over the years. And so he's ordering the tightening of this kind of spending to avoid the appearance of any impropriety. But which you may have been out when we've been talking about that for the last few weeks. But that's an ongoing thing. That's what I think BJ's question was surrounding whether or not we've got any further accounting, because he did commit that the party would pay when it was discovered it was a political trip. And that's what BJ's question is surrounding, whether all of it has been fully covered yet, and I don't have the answer for that as yet. Sure.
Can I?
Let me see if she's done yet.
I'm done.
You done? Okay. Okay, just let me get through my list of people who have questions before you piggyback off anybody. Who else had a question? I think Scott Cipollone from Financial Times is here. Hi, Scott.
So yeah, just a couple of questions. First, is the government waiting on direction from the United States before deciding whether or not to arrest Sam Bankman-Fried or to let him leave his residence?
It's something we can't comment on because it's an active investigation.
On the, I won't talk about the investigation that's active per se, but just in a court filing in the United States, the new FTX CEO said, and I'll just read it out, never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as occurred here. He added that there was faulty regulatory oversight of FTX. How does that square with the Prime Minister's comments in Parliament that the government and the regulators in the Bahamas couldn't stop the collapse of FTX?
I think Prime Minister explained it, and his comments will stand. He said in Parliament that he believes, that he said that, first of all, it's not just Bahamas thing. This is across many countries throughout the jurisdiction and throughout the world. He maintains that he believes the Bahamas' financial section and center is well regulated, and he stands by that. We stand by that as well.
If I may, just one final question. In a court filing again in the States that's filed this week, it said that Sam Bankman-Fried stated in verified text messages that Bahamas regulators instructed that FTX assets be transferred from Bankman-Fried and Mr. Gary Wang, and that such assets were custody under the control of the Bahamian government. The claim there is basically that the government is responsible for directing unauthorized access to FTX systems for the purpose of obtaining its assets.
We can't verify that. We have no comment on that today. Okay. Anybody else you had some other questions? Jasper,
Oh, you didn't see me?
Go ahead, Jasper.
My first question, do you have a cost for the government's trip to Egypt for COP27?
No. As you know, the trip is still continuing. It's not just last week when Prime Minister visited. It's a 3-week mission that's continuing. And the rest of the delegation will be back next week. So accounting isn't closed off until they're back.
My second question. Minister of Works and Utilities, Alfred Sayers, conceded in Parliament yesterday that a cabinet paper on the need to execute hedge transactions for BPL last fall was addressed specifically to the Minister of Finance, and that the Ministry of Finance rejected the hedge committee's recommendation to execute trades last fall. The Prime Minister told the House of Assembly repeatedly that he never saw any papers or received any briefing on the need to execute those trades. How is it that the Prime Minister, who is also the Minister of Finance, would not have been aware of such recommendations, and how is it that the Ministry of Finance rejected the request to execute the trades and the Prime Minister had no knowledge of it?
I have no information on that. Just a question you probably want to put to the Prime Minister or the Minister who works directly. I have nothing on that. We'll find out for you. I can actually submit the question and get a response for you if you'd like me to do that. Sure. Yes.
So there's a question from ZNS Northern Service. What is the update on West Grand Bahamas Government Complex?
It's nearing completion. We're hoping to open by the first quarter of next year, the West Grand Bahama Complex. More specifically, we can say that the application has been made for occupancy, the license that is, and furniture is already, it's in the stage of being ordered now for that building. So we expect within the first quarter of next year for the West Grand Bahama Government Complex to be up and operational. Thank you for that. Eyewitnesses, yes.
Okay, so just piggybacking off what you said earlier, there was a lot of criticism over recent weeks about the government spending a lot of money on travel. Will austerity measures be put in place to, I guess, cut back on travel?
The Prime Minister would have addressed that at great length yesterday in the House of Assembly, outlining that when you talk about government, and first of all, just to make it clear, we've not exhausted what has been budgeted for this fiscal year. We're still well within that figure. Secondly, that figure is not Prime Minister's travel. That's the entire government sector. That's technical officers who are traveling to do work for the government. That's going to family islands to do work for the government for payments throughout the length and breadth of this country. It is not just what people like to focus on, Prime Minister traveling. He also outlined that his travel is necessary and has yielded. He gave a list of what the travel has yielded. The IMF agreement, the talks to find new ways of dealing with financing debt for countries because of what the Bahamas has proposed with blue carbon credits. He also talked about the MOU that was signed by the African Exim Bank yesterday, a result of his travel. So what Prime Minister in essence said, and he would have said it yesterday, was his travel is always purpose-filled, not just jet-setting for jet-setting purposes.
And is that the same case for the size of the delegations as well, which people have also been bringing attention to?
Yeah, the delegation sizes are based on necessity. What each person would probably perhaps bring to a particular mission and work ethics. For example, the technical officers who have been to COP from various agencies and ministries, because their ministries are now going to be affected by new policies that are coming up out of COP and dealing with the agriculture sector, dealing with education, health and wellness. And that's why you would see people from those jurisdictions go. So delegations are based on the necessity of who's going and the work that they perform and what they'll be meeting about. Yes, sure.
What's the government's public relations plan, communications plan for FTX? There's obviously going to be more Financial Times coming to our shores, and there'll be more questions. It took a week for anybody to hear from the government about FTX, and the Prime Minister thinks that we're going to come up with an enhanced reputation as a digital assets jurisdiction. But people need to hear from the government as much as they heard from the government when we were bringing FTX and other digital assets companies here. What's the plan to stay in front of this story?
That's what we're doing. We're communicating it as we get information. Sometimes because information doesn't come to you as speedily as you would like it, doesn't mean it's not coming. We want to make sure that whenever we speak on matters, we're speaking with information, we're speaking with intelligence, and the right people are speaking. Not every time it's the government that needs to speak. There are regulators that you want to allow to be able to speak to their industry and their sector. The government Prime Minister speaks when there is a need for him to speak, not just because people want a story or people want comments. We've always maintain that we are government of transparency. That's why we're addressing your questions today. That's why we're giving you as much answers as we possibly can. We want to be prudent with anything that we say publicly, because at the end of the day, the government has a responsibility to govern and to lead and to protect its country. And so we're doing that. But make no mistake about it, as information needs to be disseminated, it will be. It will be. Sure. Can I have your name and your agency?
Naja Cobra, the Nassau Guardian.
Hi, Naja.
Do we know how long the FTX investigations may last? Like, do we know how much longer?
We don't. We don't. We're governed, we talk to the regulators, and as they give us information, as we hear from the investigators, then we're able to determine. Remember, this is not a investigation that's centered around the Bahamas. It's global. And so there are multifacets in various jurisdictions, but I can't say at this point how long it'll be.
And do we know if the government will cooperate across the jurisdictions with all of the investigations?
Government will always cooperate to protect its jurisdiction and to always be a part of wherever we can be a part. Yes. Thank you.
Just to confirm, I'm not sure if I heard it asked earlier, are the U.S. and the Bahamas in talks about, as it relates to this investigation?
We didn't respond to it.
Sorry, could I just confirm you didn't respond to the US reaching out about...
No, I didn't respond to the question.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
All right, if that's it, that's our press briefing for today. We don't have a featured vendor for today, but of course you know how to reach out to us. If you have any other further questions, we're here at the Prime Minister's press office to answer those for you. Thank you so much, and good afternoon.